Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. The Young and the Restless Wednesday, October 23 recap. Sharon cries in Nick's arms, Chance finds new proof. The Young and the Restless, Y&R, spoilers recap for Wednesday, October 23, reveals that Nick Newman, Joshua Morrow, will speak to Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, at Society, where she'll complain about the evidence against Daniel Romalotti Jr., Michael Grazietti, and point the finger at Sharon Newman, Sharon case. Nick will get updates on Sharon's visit to Daniel's apartment the last night Heather Stevens, Vale Bloom, was seen alive, but he'll refuse to believe Sharon harmed her or framed Daniel. Furthermore, Nick won't want Phyllis upsetting Sharon with wild accusations and will warn Phyllis to stay away from her. Phyllis will fume over Nick putting Sharon's feelings first when Daniel could go down for a crime he didn't commit, but Nick will ultimately stomp off. At Daniel's place, the forensic team will help Chance Chancellor, Connor Floyd, investigate so they'll shine the blue light and see that Heather was bludgeoned there in the apartment with a nearby octopus bookend. Phyllis will eventually get Chance on the phone and demand a meeting at Crimson Lights. Although Phyllis will claim to have information, she'll really just want to steer Chance's investigation toward Sharon instead of Daniel. Chance will refuse to believe Sharon is capable of eliminating Heather and framing Daniel, but Phyllis will think their romantic history is clouding his judgment. However, Chance will feel like Phyllis' feud with Sharon over the years is altering her own perception instead. Once Chance gets news on the case over the phone, he'll tell Phyllis that there's progress without offering any details. At Sharon's place, she'll open the door to Daniel, who'll demand answers about her visit to his place the last night Heather was seen alive. Sharon will repeat the story she told the cops and insist she didn't want to add to Daniel and Lucy Romalotti's, Lily Brooks O'Brien, pain by telling them during their park encounter. Although Sharon will stand by her claims that Heather was terrified of Daniel, he'll get increasingly agitated as he insists that's not true. Sharon won't like Daniel's tone, but Daniel will lash out and eventually grill her about whether she's responsible for killing Heather and setting him up. Of course, Sharon will deny everything and act like Daniel knows she couldn't possibly be responsible deep down. After Sharon talks about understanding grief and pushes Daniel to lean on his loved ones, he'll decide he shouldn't have come there and take off. Sharon will be a nervous wreck in the aftermath, but Cameron Kirsten, Lyndon Ashby, will push her to keep her act together and argue that all this is almost over. A glowing fantasy version of Nick will appear and invite Sharon to open up to him, so she'll consider confessing her mistake. Cameron will warn Sharon not to do that, especially since the real Nick wouldn't be so understanding. After Cameron makes a prediction about Sharon landing in prison if she comes clean, he'll continue to rant about how much she needs his help. Next on Wednesday's I&R episode, Nick will show up at Sharon's door for real. As Sharon cries that she can't take it anymore, she'll throw herself into Nick's arms. Back with Daniel, he'll get on a video call with Danny Romalotti, Michael Damian, and talk about the incriminating evidence that's made him the prime suspect. Daniel will ask Danny to send Christine Blair, Laura Lee Bell, to help him and take Lucy on tour for a while to protect her from all the drama of this investigation. The Young and the Restless spoilers say Daniel has more turmoil ahead of him thanks to Sharon's frame-up, so stay tuned. On the Young and the Restless episode airing Wednesday, October 23, Juneau City saw emotions running high as secrets began to unravel, alliances were tested, and new discoveries altered the course of future plans. The day started with Sharon's heartbreaking confrontation with reality and ended with Chance finding startling evidence that could blow everything wide open. Sharon cries in Nick's arms. The tension between Sharon and Nick had been simmering for weeks. Their relationship, once solid as a rock, had become fragile under the weight of Sharon's recent health scare. The brave facade she had been wearing for everyone else finally cracked today, and the floodgates opened in Nick's arms. At Crimson Lights, Sharon had been going about her day, attempting to keep herself busy with the cafe's operations. But the weight of her diagnosis and the emotional strain it had put on her loved ones was proving too much to handle. She'd been dodging Nick's attempts to check on her, insisting she was fine. But today, it became clear that Sharon couldn't shoulder the burden alone any longer. Nick walked into the cafe, sensing something was off as soon as he saw Sharon. Her face was pale, and her eyes held that distant look he had come to dread. He didn't need to ask if she was okay. He knew she wasn't. "Sharon," Nick said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to keep pretending everything's fine." Sharon tried to hold it together, but her chin trembled as she shook her head, her voice a whisper. "I'm so scared, Nick." That was all it took for Nick to pull her into his arms. As soon as his arms wrapped around her, Sharon's emotions poured out like a broken dam. Sobs racked her body, and Nick just held her, stroking her hair, whispering that it was okay to let it all out. For months, Sharon had been the strong one. She had reassured her children, supported her friends, and kept up a brave front. But with Nick, she didn't have to be strong anymore. She could fall apart, and he would be there to catch her. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," she sobbed. "I'm trying, but I feel like I'm falling apart." Nick pulled back slightly, looking her in the eyes. "You don't have to do it alone, Sharon. We're all here for you, no matter what happens. And I'm not going anywhere." Sharon's tears continued to flow as she buried her face in Nick's chest, grateful for his unwavering support. In that moment, it wasn't about their complicated past or any future uncertainties. It was about being there for each other, as they always had been, through thick and thin. Chance finds new proof. Meanwhile, across town, Chance was closing in on a lead that could shake the foundation of Geno City. The investigation he had been quietly conducting was starting to bear fruit, and today he stumbled upon something that could change everything. For weeks, Chance had been working tirelessly, trying to piece together the mystery surrounding recent suspicious activities that had been plaguing the Newman family. Victor had been adamant that there was someone working behind the scenes, someone who was trying to undermine his empire. And Chance, ever the dedicated detective, wasn't about to let that slide. Today, a tip had come in from one of his informants. A small but significant piece of evidence had surfaced, something that linked all the strange occurrences back to a name Chance hadn't expected: Adam Newman. Chance had always been wary of Adam, knowing his history and how he operated. But this new piece of evidence put Adam squarely in the middle of the chaos, and it wasn't just circumstantial, it was damning. In his office, Chance spread out the documents on his desk, reviewing every detail meticulously. There were transactions, phone records, and even surveillance footage that all pointed to Adam's involvement in a scheme to sabotage Newman Enterprises. But what struck Chance the most was the subtlety of Adam's moves. It was clear that he had been playing the long game, carefully manipulating events without drawing too much attention to himself. Chance knew he had to tread carefully. Confronting Adam directly could spook him, and if Adam felt cornered, there was no telling what he might do next. But keeping this information to himself wasn't an option either. Victor needed to know the truth. His phone buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. It was Abby. He hesitated before answering, knowing that he couldn't keep this from her for much longer either. Their relationship had been strained recently, and part of that was because of his dedication to this case. "Hey," he answered, trying to keep his voice neutral. "Chance, where are you?" "We need to talk." Abby's voice was urgent. "I'm at the office, but I'm heading out soon." What's going on? There was a pause before she replied. It's about Adam. I think something's going on, and I need you to look into it. I don't trust him. Chance's heart raced. She was on the same wavelength, but she didn't know just how deep Adam's involvement went. I'll meet you at Society in an hour, he said, hanging up. As he gathered his files, Chance couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the edge of something much bigger than he had anticipated. He had uncovered proof, but now came the difficult part, deciding what to do with it. A brewing storm. Back at the Newman Ranch, Victor was sitting in his office, staring at his chessboard, deep in thought. He had sensed that something was amiss for a while now, but he hadn't been able to put his finger on it. His empire was solid, his family was safe, yet there was an undercurrent of unease that had been gnawing at him. When Nick arrived later that evening, fresh from his emotional encounter with Sharon, Victor could tell something was off with his son as well. "Nicholas, what's troubling you?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. Nick sighed, sinking into a chair across from his father. "It's Sharon. She's going through hell right now, and I don't know how to help her." Victor leaned back in his chair, nodding slowly. "Sharon is a fighter. She's been through worse, and she'll get through this. But she needs you by her side." Nick nodded, but his thoughts were interrupted by his phone vibrating on the table. It was a message from Chance. "We need to talk. It's about Adam." Nick's stomach twisted. He had a feeling this was only the beginning of a storm that was about to hit them all, and he wasn't sure they were ready for it. Conclusion. As the episode came to a close, Sharon's tears, Chance's discovery, and Victor's looming sense of dread set the stage for what promises to be an explosive future in Genoa City. The cracks in the foundations were starting to show, and soon the truth would come spilling out, whether everyone was ready for it or not.